Continuing on, here is how to weld script fonts in your Silhouette software. Quickly, I'm just finished up cutting those notebook pages, so I'm going to move those out of the way. And like I think I mentioned before, I like to go ahead and keep all of those open just in case I make a mistake somewhere and I need to go back and cut another one. That way I don't have to go through the work of opening them again and resizing them or trying to remember what I resized them to. Okay, to weld your font or to cut any font, you want to click the text button over there on the left side of your screen. Then there's a drop-down box where you can choose the font that you want to use. I chose a script font called Windy Medium. It just happens to be one of my favorites. And then in that text box down at the bottom, you can type the text that you want to cut. There are several other options, but I do most of my editing once I've dropped it into my document. Okay, I just made this big so that you can see where each of those letters meet. They overlap. And if I cut it now, those letters would cut individually and it would be a big mess. So what you want to do is make sure it's highlighted. Then up in your toolbar, you'll click the button that says Weld Shapes. And after a minute, you will see that the shapes have been welded together and all those extra lines are gone. Then you can go back and right-click and do the position settings and change it to the size that you want it to be. So I changed mine to 7 inches in length. If you want to tip it up, click on one of the corners until you see the little circle with the arrow. And you can just turn it, any design, and move that where you want to. I didn't get it quite up and down right, so I'm just going to turn it a little bit more till I get that straight up and down. It doesn't really matter, but I just like it a little bit better. Then just like before, I like to copy and paste the image right on top of itself so it cuts twice. Then you just go ahead and send it to your Silhouette to cut. And that is how you weld script fonts. The next thing I'm going to go over real quickly is how to position your paper on the cutting mat and what cutting tips to use. So this was where I was cutting the word naughty out of the red snowflake paper, and I had this scrap of Cosmo Cricut Joyride paper, and it's not quite 8.5 inches long, which is what will fit on the cutting mat between those two black registration marks there at the top of your mat. So, but that doesn't matter. You can use just about any size of paper as long as your design will fit on it. So I'm just going to line it up with that right corner on your cutting mat, then load into your machine. I remove the cutting tip here. The pink tip is on and that's the one I want to use. The yellow one you would use for vellum, the blue one you can use for vinyl. But most of the time I just keep the pink cutting tip on. Then you'll insert it back in there and turn the little blue knob to lock it. You can leave the lid shut if you want, but most of the time I leave it open just to kind of make sure I see what I'm doing. So I'm going to go ahead and I've already set it up to cut, so it's just running through the machine, and it goes back and forth a couple times just to position everything correctly, and then it'll start cutting. Okay, it's done cutting, so I'll turn the knob and remove my cutting mat, and then I'm just going to carefully peel up my paper. And these new cutting mats for the Silhouette are great. They're really sticky. This one has been used a bunch. You can see there's lots of cut marks on it. It is not a brand new mat, and it is still ultra sticky and works great. So they last a lot longer. I really like that. And there's what the word looks like all cut out. Okay, one of the ways I adhere delicate die cut shapes. You can see here I stretched that square background that I die cut. It's a 6-inch square, but I cut it in half because it's hidden back behind that strip of photos. So it's just one way to get more use out of a die cut design. So I'm just going to adhere these bigger pieces. I'm just adhering with my tape runner. Okay, the way I like to adhere titles and delicate items is I turn them over, and I just have this shallow box that I keep for projects like this, and I'm turning everything over. I'm going to spray them all at once, and I use a spray adhesive. I just find it works well. It gives nice coverage. There's none of those icky little sticky things on the sides or anything. This is just Krylon spray adhesive, and I picked mine up at Hobby Lobby, but I think you can get it other places as well. And I'm just spraying the back of them really good, make sure that I get them all covered. And then I'm just going to move that out of the way, and then I will adhere them to my layout. And it's not so sticky as to you lay it down, you can't move it around at all. Once it's dry, it's not quite as easy to move. But right at first when you're working with it, if you're really careful, you can pick it up and move it around. For example, I'm adhering the word "and" right here, and I didn't get it put right where I wanted the first time, so I will pick it up and move it over a little bit. And I'd even pressed it down there pretty good, so I'm just going to real carefully pick it up and move it over. And that looks better. And it makes it nice for layering the different words and such that I'm using. And then I'll go ahead and adhere my welded shapes that I did, or text that I did. That weld feature is really nice for creating your own titles or accents or quotes for your pages. So I'm just adding, now the welded title had some teeny tiny little parts, the dots for the eyes and also the apostrophe for little. And to do that, instead of spraying them because they're so small and hard to pick up, I like to just use a liquid adhesive, and you can use diamond glaze and stuff. I happen to have this glossy accents on hand, and so it works well for that too. In fact, I squirted a little over there, so I just wiped it up real quick with my finger. But I'm just going to add a couple little dabs for the little tiny pieces I have to add, and then I just pick it up with my finger and kind of quickly just drop it right onto the glue. That's just the best way I found for these teeny tiny pieces, is I just use my finger to pick them up and place them right on the adhesive. It dries quickly and they stay put. So there you have it. That is how I adhere delicate pieces or die cut pieces. I also use a spray adhesive for that stripe background when I layered it onto the white cardstock. Thanks for watching. For more information, visit 2pieceinAbucket.com.